So one person you can look at in terms of competition is who that top tier person in your industry or vocation is, and use that as your pace setter. How far away are you from that level of success? Okay, and that's what this podcast is for success. Okay, so some of you all might not want to do that, but I would suggest to you that you need a pace setter, right, in order to gauge where you are in this race to success. Bam. Yo, this is the End-to-End Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Young Nguyen, and as my friends call me Ninja, as you know, you can call me Ninja too. This is the End-to-End Podcast, the alpha to the omega, beginning to the end, talking about life, inspiration, motivation, entrepreneurship, in this all-you-can-eat buffet called life. Today's going to be an interesting topic, but before I dive into it, I just want to remind you that if you find value in this podcast or any of my other prior podcasts, please do like, comment, share. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube at End-to-End Podcast, the End-to-End Podcast. N2, N Podcast. Another element we've added is that if you have any questions from my audience, as my audience continues to grow, and I thank you for that, if you have any questions or comments, please email us directly at ask@the2n podcast.com. I would love to hear from you all and then address any questions that you may have on any of the topics we discussed or anything beyond that. As a reminder, for those of you new to the podcast, my background is that I'm a refugee immigrant from Vietnam after the Vietnam War. Grew up mostly in Texas. The youngest of four boys. My parents were very entrepreneurial, and that's where I learned a lot of my entrepreneurial concept skills and all these things that have pushed me throughout my life. Trained as a physician. I'm also a lawyer. Have a law firm based out of Houston, Texas, where we've helped thousands of clients in the personal injury space, but also have a lot of other entrepreneurial endeavors in technology, healthcare, sports and entertainment, and so forth. So want to be here to share this knowledge and experience with you, and also to grow together as we try to affect the lives of billions of people around the world in a positive way to make positive change for everyone. Today I want to talk about a very specific concept that has driven me throughout my entire life, and that is competition. I grew up with the idea that in life, everything's a competition. And I don't know where that came from, whether it was just instilled in me or just through my upbringing, but to give you kind of in context, my very first idea of relative competition was based on my upbringing with my parents. They were in their 40s with 4 boys with a newborn in the early mid 70s. Saigon fell to the North Communist regime in Vietnam, and so as well-to-do as they were in Vietnam, my parents just relocated, immigrated to America with literally shirts on their back. No money, left everything behind. They were very well off in Vietnam. Left everything behind with 4 boys to start again. And not in a concept to thrive, but just to survive. They had to compete. They had to compete for everything just to survive. And I'm thankful and grateful for that. And and by the way, go back to episode number 1 when I talk about gratefulness and thankfulness. But they had to compete. And when they started their printing business in the late 70s, early 80s, back then it was dog eat dog. And especially for them not knowing English, not knowing the culture, managing all these things, including the 4 boys. I mean, it was competition at its rawest. But they found a way to succeed through that as small business owners. At the peak, they had 30, 40 employees in the 80s doing $4 to $5 million a year in revenue. And that's where I grew up. That's the environment I grew up, which I'll talk about in a future episode. But that was competition. And then, of course, being the youngest of 4 boys, we had to compete around the house. My parents were off to work. I mean, what do 4 boys do but back then, do sports in the streets and run around being boys, and had to compete in that environment. And then in school, had to compete. Then in youth athletics, had to compete. I finished second salutatorian in my high school class out of almost 400 students in Houston. And it was just one of those things where everything I did, I viewed as a competition. Getting into college, none of my brothers went to college. They all invested their time and energy into the business, my parents' business. So I was the only one that went to school, college education. And then getting into medical school, that was a competition. That's not something very easy to do. And then moving off from medicine to law, getting into law school, also a competition. Getting my master's in finance, also a competition. And to this day, I compete. Now, Einstein was right. Everything, the theory of relativity, if you don't know, Einstein came up with a theory of relativity, which means everything that exists is in relative to something else. Time, space, whatever. Everything is relative to something else. The classic example is that if you're sitting in a train next to another train, and then you see the train in the window, there's movement, one of the trains is moving, the only way to know which one is moving is understanding that you're relative to the other train. So are you moving, or is the other train moving? That's the theory of relativity in an example. And so as you get older and older and older, at a young age and in sports, that competition is easy to see. It's the other opponent. It's the other team. It's your other classmates. If you're trying to get, high-ranking magna cum laude, summa cum laude, whatever it is in your school, or if you're trying to compete in a sports event, it's the other team. It's the other competition. But as you get older into your career and into your life, it's hard to see what the competition really is to measure yourself against. Okay? For me, one of the keys that I look into is there's two areas of relative competition that you can always look at to gauge where you are, the progress you're making, and your pathway to success. Okay? Now, for me, for example, in my legal world, there are the top attorneys in the industry, top litigation attorneys in the industry. That's my competition. There are guys that, multi-billionaires because they're so good. I want to be that. In my businesses that I'm involved with, there are leaders of the industry. That's my competition. So in similar fashion for you, whether you own your own business, whatever career path you're in, or you're a 9-to-5 person, you can always find somebody in your industry or in your space that you can say, hey, that's the target. That's my competition. I want to do or exceed what that person is doing. And it doesn't matter how high or low your vocation is. You could be, and I'm not putting it down because everybody starts somewhere, you could be the fry cooker at a McDonald's. But you could be the best damn fry cooker you can be. And you can find somebody to compete with. For example, if you want to own a McDonald's, you might look at the owner as your competition, even though you're the fry cooker. Because that owner is who you aspire to be, to match, or exceed. Look at their habits. Look at what they do. Look at how they conduct themselves. Look at how they interact with other people. Look at how they treat customers. Look at how they treat their team members. All these characteristics are qualities that you can view as a level of competition to shape and mold yourself and how you conduct yourself as a measure of how far away you are to your goal and what you need to do to get to your goal. Okay? As a famous, I don't want to say famous, but there's a video of Kobe, the late Kobe Bryant, who, as he grew up, it was, I forget which interview it is, but He grew up in Italy. I think his dad played pro ball overseas at some point. And all he would have were videotapes of old Chicago Bulls games with Michael Jordan. And he would watch those over and over and over and over and over again. And you would say that that was his idol, but I would view that as that was his competition, because he felt that he knew he would be playing up against Michael Jordan at some point. And in fact, he watched the video so much that he mimicked the moves of Michael. He stole from him and improved upon him, the moves of Michael Jordan. So that one day, someday, and as it eventually happened, Kobe gets to the NBA and plays Michael Jordan. Well, that was his competition. And he knew he had to get to that level or exceed it to at least compete to be the best basketball player on the planet, or try to be at least. Okay? These top-tier lawyers that I look up to, and it's a friendly competition, right? We're not mano-y-mano going against each other, but it's a friendly competition. These top-tier lawyers that I look at, I try to copy them. What techniques work for them? How did they become so successful? How can I take what they're doing and pull them into my practice so that I can become better? There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of it. That's part of the process of becoming better and better and better. You ask any top-tier athlete, any top-tier coach, and they will tell you that they always look at other top-tier performers and take the best parts out of their game and implement them into their own game. So one person you can look at in terms of competition is who that top-tier person in your industry or vocation is, and use that as your pace setter. How far away are you from that level of success? Okay? And that's what this podcast is for success, okay? So some of you all might not want to do that, but I would suggest to you that you need a pace setter, right, in order to gauge where you are in this race to success. Now, the second person, and if you follow me on my personal social at The Prolific Ninja, I did a clip, like a little snippet one day at a legal conference where, you always hear the expression in the motivational space, you got to be 1% better than who you were yesterday. You always got to improve. You got to look at who you were yesterday and figure out where you are today. I think that's a misconception. Okay, I don't believe in looking who I was yesterday and try to be 1% better, because that is not competition. Okay, that is not a pace setter, because it's already happened in the past. That will not set your pace and motivation to the future. Because what happens? Okay, maybe I get 1% better than yesterday, but do I stop at 1%? Is that my cap for today? Just get 1% better? No. That is not the proper relative competition that I need to be looking at. My suggestion would be, envision your future self. That person you are trying to become. Whether it's that billionaire, whether it's that successful entrepreneur, whether it's the director of your department in your business, whether it's that person that is out in the community that wants to influence and help all those around you. Okay? That person is the competition, because you're not there yet. You haven't achieved that yet. So when you imagine or envision who that person is in the future, that should be the measuring stick. That person should be the pace setter for where you are now. So whether I'm 1% better than I was yesterday, or whether I'm 20% better than what I was yesterday. What if yesterday I sucked really bad and I'm only 1% better? Is that actually closer to my goal of who I want to become? No. Okay? I'm here. This is that future person. That's the gap I need to close. That's the distance I need to close. These are the things I need to go through or do or perform at or practice at to become that future me. I don't care about the past me. We don't live in the past. We got to be in the present. And we modify the present to shoot for where we're going into the future. Okay? So all that motivational stuff, be 1% better than you were yesterday, I don't believe in that. My expression would be, get closer to who you want to become. Get closer to who you want to become right now, today. Move forward. Don't look in the past. How far away are you? Okay? How far is that gap? I want to move closer and as fast as possible, with urgency, with direction, with intent, with deliberateness. I want to move closer to that person as quick and fast as possible. Because once I get there, what happens? Well, now I find new competition, the next version of me that I want to become. And I get there, and now I want to get to the next version of who I want to be and get there. That's competition. Okay? So I would suggest to you that if you really want to become successful, start viewing life as competition, as a competition with whoever the top in your industry is and with your future self. Everything is relative. And so when you look at those two individuals, right, you can always gauge where you are and tell where you are. And you'll know how much work you need to put in to get to that level if you're willing to do it. Okay? And that's what this podcast is attempting to try to help people do. Okay? Find that competition. Strive for that competition. Get that fire in your belly and go after it. Okay? Compete every day. Compete every day. Now, there will be ups and downs, obviously. But the idea is strive closer to the person you want to become. Strive closer to the leaders in your industry. And I guarantee you progress will be made, and that progress will start compounding on itself, right? And that curve that we talked about several episodes ago, that curve of life that goes like this, where it's flat at the bottom, you start making some progress, and then you make significant progress where the slope is really vertical, right? Competition will help you get there. Okay, compete. Okay. Once again, if you found value in this, please do like, share, and comment in this podcast. Follow on all social platforms, especially iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, where you can catch these episodes at N2N podcast, at N2N podcast. If you have any questions, please do email them in at ask@the2npodcast.com. This is the N2N podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Yun Win, the Prolific Ninja, and I will see you again very, very soon.